I just watched 47 AI automation agencies crash and burn in the last 6 months. And after analyzing every single failure, I discovered that 99% of them made the exact same 7 mistakes. In this video, I'm going to break down the 7 deadly sins of AI automation that are costing founders their businesses, their sanity, and their money. I'm Chris from Torah Tech AI, and after 2 years of building automations for over 200 clients, I can tell you exactly which mistakes will make or break your AI business. By the end of this video, you'll know how to avoid every single one of these pitfalls and how to build an automation business that actually lasts. We've also got a checklist version of these 7 pitfalls inside AI Agency Blueprint if you want to grab that later on. All right, without further ado, let's get into the first pitfall. I call it the custom build trap. So here's one trap I've seen almost every new automation founder make: taking on big, flashy custom projects. You land a client and want something totally unique, like an Uber for local artisans with AI-powered recommendations, or some other fancy stuff. Of course, it sounds like a dream deal. Big scope, maybe even bigger invoice, but you know what they say: all that glitter isn't gold. So here's what ends up happening. You take on the project with its fat $10,000 invoice, and then you plunge into a months-long grind. Endless calls, revisions, unexpected requests, late-night support, and scope creep that spirals out of control. I've literally watched founders spend more than 200 hours on one single build, only to come back, count the cost, and realize that they barely made $5 per hour when all that was said and done. $5 per hour. That's not growth. That's burnout disguised as progress. Now, here's why the custom build trap is a dangerous pit, especially for first-timers. First is scope creep. Clients are just going to keep adding one more thing until you find yourself doing everything from strategy to QA to tech support, none of which you initially signed up for. I go into this more in detail in the next section, by the way, so hang in there. Secondly, opportunity cost. While you're buried deep in this never-ending custom build, you'd be losing several other opportunities to onboard other better quality, more scalable clients. 3 is no reusability. Custom projects require you to start from scratch every single time. You can't reuse that template for another business, so there's no compounding advantage, just hours of work each time. So how do you avoid this custom build trap? For one, you want to limit custom work. It's great to do a couple bespoke projects early on to learn the ropes, but make sure to transition fast. Do not turn bespoke projects into your whole business. Build repeatable solutions like a lead qualification system or invoice automation. These are automations that solve common problems across industries, so they have a wide appeal. Package these solutions into services that you can tweak slightly per client, and you won't have to keep rebuilding from zero each time. Point is, you want to think like a manufacturer. Let's look at a car manufacturer. For example, instead of building a new car for every single customer, they design 1 or 2 solid models and then they sell them many more times. Maybe they might tweak the color here or change a feature there, but the basic model is the same, and they can sell this model many times over. Borrow this mindset and you'll avoid the custom build trap and give yourself predictability, higher profit margins, and faster delivery. All right, so on to pitfall number 2, which I call the yes to everything spiral. The mistake of trying to be everything for everybody is a pretty common mistake I see in the AI automation business. And to be honest, I also made that mistake. When I started out, I said yes to nearly every single request. Can you build my website? Can you build this automation this way? Yes. Can you build that for me? Yes. Can I implement this workflow into this department? Yes. Please do this for my social media. Definitely, bring it on. Could you create a custom email newsletter automation just for my company with this, and that specific need, and the dashboard and the UI to be this single way? Why not? Yeah, I was saying yes to everything. And honestly, I felt like I was helping, but I wasn't helping. I was really just juggling, and I wasn't even doing it very well. Because here's the problem with trying to be a generalist. When you take on too many different types of work, especially those outside your core skill set, you lose focus and you lose it fast. So instead of trying to get really good at AI automation, you spend hours figuring out things that absolutely have nothing to do with that, like Canva templates and social media captions. But there's an even deeper issue. You stop being seen as a specialist and you start looking like a general freelancer who will do anything for a fee. Now that's really bad for you in the long term, and I'll mention in a moment 3 reasons as to why that is. Number 1, you dilute your brand. If clients can't tell what it is you're best at, they won't know why they should hire you in the first place. Secondly, you mess up your workflow. For every new type of service you switch to, you take on new tools and new client expectations. And this requires a lot of context switching, which is inevitably, it will just lead to stress, slower delivery, and burnout. Most importantly, you make less money. Generalists get paid generalist money. However, the more you specialize, the more clients see you as an expert and the more they'll be willing to pay for that expertise. So, how do you avoid the yes to everything spiral trap? It's a simple double-edged sword. First, you want to pick a lane. So you want to pick one client type, like B2B SaaS, coaches, or e-commerce brands. But don't stop there. Narrow it further. And then you want to go from saying to a business, hey, I do AI stuff. What do you need help with? To instead saying, hey, I help e-commerce brands automate their customer support using AI. Or you could say, I build lead qualifying bots for B2B startups. The kind of clarity and specification makes your pitch way stronger. It also makes your delivery smoother because you'll be solving the same types of problems over and over again. And secondly, learn to say no. And this doesn't mean that you have to be rude. Just have a polite message on hand for when requests come that are outside of your skill set. It could be as simple as, hey, that's not our core focus, but I know someone who can help. And that's it. You stay focused and the client respects your clarity. Ultimately, the point is, the more focused your business is, the easier it becomes to market, sell, and scale it because you'll spend more time delivering great work at premium prices. Here's how this trap usually begins, and perhaps you've noticed it yourself. Now, it begins with excitement. Maybe you read about some hot new strategy like TikTok ads or a fresh AI tool or some marketing framework that someone somewhere swears by. Now, of course, everyone pitching these things makes it sound as if it's the next best thing. So you'll find yourself thinking, maybe I should try that too. But then next week, it's something else. And suddenly, you're pulled to that as well. Look at what's happening here. It's subtle but dangerous. Before you know it, you're jumping from one idea to the next, always strategizing, always starting something new, but never quite following through long enough to see real results. Of course, it feels productive, but it's actually just motion without momentum. And because you never go deep into any one service or client type, you don't build expertise. And without expertise, it's almost impossible to stand out or charge premium prices. So how do you fix this? And as I said with the last point we just talked about, pick a lane and stick with it. And this time, stick with it for 90 days at least. And look, you don't need to have the perfect niche or service from day one. So don't spend too much time obsessing over that. What's important is that you choose a niche, so do just that. It could be a cold email automation for SaaS companies or AI chatbots for e-commerce. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Just pick something and commit to it for 90 days without switching lanes. That time block will give you enough time to refine your offer, learn from client feedback, and build real momentum. Secondly, make a clear and bold promise. Clients are attracted to confidence, but you can't have confidence without commitment. Look at this clear, measurable promise, for instance. 5x ROI in 30 days or your money back. That's super attractive. Plus, it shows that you're serious and focused on delivering an outcome really well. But how can you make such a bold promise without commitment? You can't. That's why you need to commit. 3, don't drown in analytics. To be honest, tracking 1 or 2 key metrics is actually more than enough to move your business forward. You could pick, say, demo calls booked or maybe ROI per client. Whatever you choose, stick with them and measure them religiously. This is how to improve without necessarily getting distracted. Now, to be clear, commitment does not mean that you have to lock yourself into something forever. All I'm saying is give your strategies enough time and energy to work. You can't optimize what you keep abandoning. All right, mistake number 4 is simple but serious. It's a blind spot that's easy to overlook but has cost founders millions in unpaid invoices. I'm talking about the post-delivery payment trap. So you work hard, do an excellent job, and then you send the invoice and nothing. Honestly, this situation is much more common than you think. And it's not even as if clients are actually trying to be sneaky. Sometimes clients genuinely get busy or forget. But here's the thing. Whether your clients are genuinely forgetting or trying to dupe you, the truth remains that you need the money. To run your business, to pay yourself, to keep going, you need that money. So when clients delay payment, it doesn't just slow you down, it actually hurts your business. And the problems with this particular trap are obvious. Besides the big hit to your income when clients don't pay, chasing down payment is a super stressful task that eats up all your time and energy. So how do you avoid this trap? The most important rule of thumb is to always ask for payment up front. Obviously, not all of it, but at least make sure you get a deposit. If you ask me, the formula I find best is to get 50% before you start, then 25% halfway through, and then the last 25% when you're done with the project. This formula ensures that you have cash flow, and it also filters out clients who aren't that serious in the first place. By the way, clients who won't accept to pay a deposit is a huge red flag. Secondly, set up automatic reminders so you don't have to chase people around manually. Mailgun and Zapier can help with that. By the way, if you've ever had to chase down a payment or wait too long to get paid, I'd like to read how you worked around that. So feel free to drop that in the comments below. And real quick, our community is live, AI Agency Blueprint. We've got founders like you already in there sharing real stories, tools, and lessons. Links in the description if you want to check it out. That said, have you ever felt like your pitch was solid? You had a clean build and all the workflows behind it are working seamlessly. But then, after delivering it, your target still wasn't impressed. If that sounds familiar, this next mistake might be the reason why. I know you know your tech and you could talk for hours about LLMs, but here's the brutal truth. Most clients do not care how your AI works. They just want to know what it can do for their business. You can talk excitedly about your AI features for minutes, but once you can't clearly explain to the client how much revenue your solution will bring them, you won't land that deal. And here's why this trap really hurts your business. First off, tech speak actually falls pretty flat. If your pitch sounds like an engineering lecture, your client will just zone out. Secondly, your tech speech makes your client look at you in terms of a cost instead of income. Your client needs clear outcomes to be able to justify partnering with you and giving their money to invest in your solution. And tech speech does not provide that. 3, over-focusing on your AI will make you miss actual pain points. While your client is thinking about churn, revenue, or time lost, you're just busy focusing on tools. And this mismatch in focus will cost you the client in the end. So, how do we fix it? To begin with, always lead with results. Tell your client what your solution will help them achieve. Don't tell them what you've built. So instead of saying, we'll build an AI chatbot, you want to say something like, we'll help you convert 30% more leads. Again, make sure to use numbers. This is the only way to go from simply saying your solution works to proving it works. This saved the client $10,000 a month in support costs, and that is 10x more persuasive than, we automated support. Also, make sure to include simple case studies. Something as simple as one of our clients was losing leads to manual follow-up. We built an automation that brought 15 extra demos a week. That lands. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that knowing the tech is unimportant. I'm just saying that selling the tech is not your real job. Your real job is showing your client how much tech helps them win. All right, so you've nailed the pitch and delivered the solution, but if you think your job ends there, you're losing serious money. Let's talk about what happens when you disappear too soon. I'm talking about the build and bounce trap. This is one mistake I see all the time, even with experienced founders. You build a tool, hand it off to your client, and simply walk away. No check-ins, no follow-up, nothing. Just here you go, good luck. Look, I already said this before, but I can't say it enough. Clients do not care about your tech. It's actually quite overwhelming for them. What they appreciate instead is accountability. Someone who sticks around and makes sure the system keeps working month after month. So if you build and bounce, they'll forget you fast. But even worse, they won't call you again. You acted like a vendor, so they'll treat you like one and you can forget about long-term loyalty. Secondly, if you build and bounce, your value will drop right after delivery. Since you won't be part of the ongoing results, your client will eventually stop seeing you as essential. And this could cost you your biggest loss of all, recurring revenue. Of course, that means you'd have to be hunting for new jobs all the time. And we both know you don't want that. So what do you do to avoid this trap? How do we stay involved? It all boils down to how you present your offer. First, you want to go from an I built it to an I make sure it keeps delivering mindset. And one way to do that is to frame your offer around recurring outcomes. So for instance, we'll deliver 50 qualified leads per month for $500. Secondly, act like you're part of the team. Check in with your client regularly, suggest improvements, celebrate wins. If you act like you're part of a team, they'll keep you around. But more importantly, they'll keep paying you. Now, speaking of results, our last point brings it all together, and I call it the echo chamber effect. Scroll through YouTube and you're sure to drown in content. One video claims AI meets SMMA is the next big thing. Another one tells you to launch an agency, build a product, start a podcast, all at once. It's overwhelming. And worse, it stops you from taking action. 1 minute, you're headed in one direction, and in the next, you're ditching it for another. And before you know it, your business never really gets you off the ground. This is bad for business on so many levels. First, it drains your time. Every hour you spend watching hyped up content is an hour you're not building, selling, or improving. Secondly, it sets you up for failure because you start to think there's some kind of shortcut that you could take or do ahead of time in your business. That's not real. And another very important and sneaky problem with the echo chamber effect is that you stop being original because all your ideas start coming from trending content instead of you. So ultimately, your work starts to look like everyone else's instead of having your unique signature. Now, how do you fix it? Curate, curate, curate. Ideally, limit your content intake to 2 or 3 experts who give clear, actionable advice in your niche. Unfollow the rest. Yep, just unfollow them. Secondly, silence the noise. Turn off notifications, use website blockers, do what you need to do to guard your focus like it's your money, because newsflash, it actually is. One more thing is set distraction-free work time. Even as little as 2 hours a day of pure no scroll focus can transform your momentum. And don't forget why all of this is important, because ultimately what you consume shapes what you create. So you've got to be super intentional about curating and what gets into your head and avoid the echo chamber effect. All right, there you have it. 7 common mistakes that stop smart founders from building AI businesses that last. Which of these hit home for you? Feel free to drop it in the comments because I'd love to know where you're at and how I can help. Speaking of, AI Agency Blueprint is our private community for AI service founders who want to build smarter and not harder. If you're looking for a proven roadmap on scaling your AI agency with ready-to-deploy templates, powerful tools, and a network of builders who are actually making moves in this AI gold rush, the link's in the description, and I can't wait to have you join us. So yeah, once again, I'm Chris from Toratech, and I'll see you guys in the next one.